Yes, thank you very much, Studium Generale, for inviting me. I will tell a little bit about my company here in Wageningen. It's called TDI, and what we do is we are like a group of inventors. We think of new things, and we try to make that into new products and new services. And we do that in different ways, but it always starts with an idea that we have that we just want to bring to the market. And so what I will do tonight is to tell a little bit more about the type of ideas that we have, which is often around biology and life sciences type of topics, and the process in which we follow to make real products and to bring things to the market. What I'll do, I'll briefly talk a little bit about my background, the study I did, and how we came to this company, TDI, in which we do these. Okay, this is. I started my studies after high school. I did chemical engineering, and I did not do that in Wageningen, but I do that in Enschede, in Twente. It's chemical engineering, and that's a very nice study in which you learn a lot of things about chemistry, particularly about how to build these large, beautiful chemical plants. Now, that was not really too much. I mean, I liked the study, but after a while I thought, like, well, this is not really my thing to go into these type of large factories. So I did my specialization in the end of my studies into biomedical materials, into materials and that you can make, that you use inside your body. Like I did a lot of these blood vessels, how you can make them from biomaterials in such a way that your body accepts these materials. So that was my master's study, and after my master's I continued and I did a PhD study, and that was more into pharmaceutics, like medicine, how you can put drugs inside the material, implant them in your body, and how you can control how these medicines are released inside your body. That's what I did for my PhD study. Also very nice, the combination between chemistry, biology, medical applications, and so on. So that was a nice thing to do. Okay, then I finished, and then I came to Wageningen. And I started working, that was like 1994, a long time ago. I started working in an institute which is called ATO-DLO. It's actually still existing, but the name is now different. It's now called Food and Bio-Based Research, that way. And it was an institute that was quite new. It was just founded a few years before I came. It was a small group of like 100 people. And what we did is to take materials from like agro materials, like starch, like fibers, everything you can find in the land, materials, and we wanted to know what you can make of them, all sorts of, let's say, industrial products out of these raw materials that you can find in nature. So we developed things like bioplastics, adhesives and paints and coatings and all sorts of, let's say, practical applications that you can do based on, let's say, the chemistry, because you can find a lot of nice chemistry in nature that you can use products as an alternative for using oil as a raw material. Well, that's what I did for like 7 years, and it was nice. We did a lot of the different products that we developed in this research institute. The institute that grew a lot. It grew to, when I left, there were like 600 people in the institute, so it was quite successful. But there was a problem, and that was also a little bit the reason that I left this institute, because we, well, a lot of people, we had a lot of nice ideas, a lot of scientists, biologists, chemists, all sorts of people, food scientists, with lots of ideas. And what we did is we developed those ideas mostly for people that were paying for it, and that those were large companies. So we had like companies like Unilever, DSM, Shell Chemicals, that wanted to do something with bio-based materials, So they were paying us as an institute to develop these nice products. The problem that we saw is that the developments you can do quite nice, but you found that all these people, they paid for the research, they got the nice results, but then in the end they did not put it on the market. They sort of, it became too often these ideas that they were put on the shelf and not know, because for them, as a large company, if you have a nice new product, it's not so easy just to put it on the market, because it's for them, it's something completely different. Not something you can just do. They don't have the salespeople they don't have the type of clients that want to work with such a completely new type of products that we were developing. So after 7 years, when I did that type of work, together with one colleague of mine, we started our own company. And that was TDI, and that was in about 16 years ago already. Feels like yesterday, but it's, we've been doing quite some time. And we thought, well, okay, let's do this differently. If we want to have ideas and we really want to make it into a reality, a real product, and put it onto the market, we have to do it different. And the way that we do it now is, okay, we have still ideas, and we, within our company, when we were a small company, we just develop first the prototypes, just the ideas, just to see if something is working okay, just in a small scale, not building large equipment, but just on a small scale. And then we go through I pointed out 3 different ways of how you can put that then to the market as a next step. Well, the first one is quite simple. You have a nice idea. You write some patents to protect the idea. And then you go to, let's say, a company, which can be also, again, Shell or Unilever, a big company, or whatever, and you give them a license. And you say, like, okay, good luck. You get the license, you can use this idea, and you pay for it, or you pay when you start selling this idea on the market, and then we get paid. That's one way to do it. The other thing you can do, you go together with, let's say, this large company, which can be a potential client for this idea, and you tell them, you know what, you pay us and we develop this product for you, and when we are successful, you get some exclusivity to use this product on the market for a certain period of time. So in that sense, they can keep their cost low. They just have to pay a little bit, but they can get a nice profit from that. They will be the first one to put it on the market if it's successful. That's the second route. And the third one, that's actually the most important one, because what we felt is that if you have a new idea, let's say in biology, you have a new concept, put it on the market is the best way to do it is to start your own new company for it. We learned that over and over again, that it's very difficult to go to, let's say, a big company and try to get them interested. If you have really a novel idea, much better just to start your own company with a small group of people, that you're much more flexible. You can look for your own places in the market how to do it. And that's what we did. So we decided to follow that path. And well, at the moment, after 16 years, we have set up around 30 different companies. I'll show a few of them. But because that turned out to be the best way to do it. If you have an idea, start your own company for it. Now, how do you do this? Of course, that's the big question. I mean, it's a nice idea, but you have to think, okay, how do you start a new company? Well, in fact, it's always in a garage. If you look at big companies like Apple, Google, they all started in a backyard, in a garage, to first think about some first ideas. And if you look at the companies that we founded, which of course are nowhere big as Apple, but like the one on the bottom line, I just took some pictures from internet on the top ones, but these bottom 3 ones are from our companies, like Ecosynthetics, Ojah, and Ficom. That is really the back doors of us, let's say, who as a first phase of what we did. So that's how it starts. Low cost. Find a place that you can experiment, but keep it simple. So I wrote down a few things here, how our process looks like. First, look for a location which is really simple. It's low cost, because you can, of course, you can hire a nice laboratory somewhere. I mean, if you go around, you can find really nice places that you can hire, let's say, a laboratory or part of a laboratory. But that is quite expensive. I mean, if you just start and you don't have much money, that is, even though it's maybe not that much, it's still too much to do. What we did, we just rented a very simple office space and we built our own lab in it. In the beginning, very simple. I first focused on a few inventions. Not with a business plan. I would never advise someone to write a business plan. I mean, that is something for much later on. I mean, first you have to get your invention and make it look, prove that it's working. Once you have, let's say, that you can show that it's actually working, your idea, then what you do is you go to really, let's say, more a development phase in which you build a prototype or end products. But that's a moment that you don't do it alone, but then you look for partners. And what we very often do, you look for a partner to outsource if you need certain equipment. Like what we do a lot, we go to the Wageningen University or a research organization, and we pay them some money to develop certain things, like equipment that we don't have, or expertise, and we just hire them to do certain specialized work for us. And what we do, we co-develop together with our potential clients, and we give them a certain exclusivity, and we ask them to pay us a little bit for us. So in that way, we can keep our costs really low. So we don't need to rent expensive laboratories. We don't need to hire experts. You can really keep your costs down. Well, this is a little bit overview of the companies that we founded. Very different I mean, we don't focus on one topic. The only thing that is common in all these topics is that they all circle a little bit around food and life sciences. I think 90% is a little bit within that domain, but that's still a very broad. It's just any good idea that you can have. You think like, hey, this is interesting. We develop and we make a new company for it. We hire a few people and try to go to the market. So if you look at all these companies, then, well, there's a few that are, let's say, already on the market and a little bit mature. They're selling products, and I don't have to worry about them anymore. Once you have hired some people and they do everything. There's a few that I'm still very much working with, like because they're still in the first phase of the development. Yeah, so it's everything very combined. I will show just a few of them, but you have a little bit of an idea of what type of topics that we do. This was actually the very first company that we founded. It's Ecosynthetics. It was around starch. We invented a way to make nanoparticles out of starch. It starts completely new properties. Very nice coatings with it because of these properties. So we had developed a process to produce these type of nanoparticles out of starch, which opened a lot of different possibilities. And eventually we came in this company, Ecosynthetics. Actually, this company is now moved to the United States, and we are not involved. We sold this company. We are not involved with it anymore. But it was the first one that we did. Also, one that we started very in the beginning was meat alternatives. The company is called Ojah. Heard of it, but we made an invention of how to have plant proteins, how you can process them in the same way as what you do with a plastic, like a synthetic plastic. You use extruders, that type of equipment that you normally use for processing plastics. We were able to process plant proteins, like soy proteins, in that type of equipment. And because we were able to do so, we were also able to give that protein a type of a structure that when you eat it, when you chew on it, it's really like a meat structure. You can really play around with the fibers inside of this protein, the texture of meat. So we have this process now that we can put the plant proteins in it. We get a sort of a meat type of product on it, and as a second step, you process it into either something that looks like chicken, or it can look a little bit more like shawarma meat, or we have we have all different types of meat. You can actually make it. You do it also by flavoring it, giving it some flavors, and then you can make you can play around with it. And this company is doing really nice at the moment. It's in the Netherlands you can buy, in Albert Heijn you can buy these type of meat replacers, and in some other countries as well. But it started just with an idea of how you can work with plant proteins and how you can process them using plastics technology. We have a company that's called Ficom. They produce algae. Because that's all we had. We met a guy there on the right. He had a great idea how to grow algae in a low-cost way. It turned out that his idea didn't work at all, but it didn't matter, because together we really, and after a few years, we were actually able to come up with something completely new. Also in his backyard, because we did a lot of experiments in his garage, in his background. That's the first few years to develop a process of how you can grow algae in a low-cost way, but make it very pure. And that is quite unique for algae, because algae you can grow in two different ways. Either very cheap, you have those large ponds with water, these open water ponds that you can grow algae. You can do that, it's cheap, but you have always a lot of pollution in it. I mean, birds are in the water. You can never keep it really pure. The other way to do it is really with biotechnology. You have those steel vessels, really controlled with temperature and everything. Really, these high-cost processing equipment to grow algae, but that's very expensive. And together with him, we found a way to really sort of use plastic bags, really cheap way to make reactors to grow algae. Very simply, very low cost, but we were able to keep them completely pure, in the sense that you don't have bacteria growing into. You can grow one species of algae, so you don't have like all this pollution of different types of species of algae. So now we can make really on a large scale powder, like very nice algae powder. And yeah, there's a big demand for that, because algae are quite popular, because you can use them in animal food or as a replacement of fish products. You can do all sorts of nice things with algae. There's a company we call Pascal. That's what we developed, is a process to pasteurize food without heating it, instead of making it hot, in which it loses a lot of its properties. You put a lot of pressure on it, a few thousand bars of pressure, and then you can have food which is safe. It's like pasteurized or sterilized without the loss in properties, the loss in vitamins and so on. Another company is Vegetarische. That is a company that is working on soil resetting. That we call it that way, but it's a way to clean soils in agriculture. There's always problems with diseases in the soil. Mostly you use chemicals, which are quite, of course, a problem. And in many countries, they're not allowed anymore, these chemicals, to clean the soil. So a lot of problems with diseases in the soil, and we found a way to put like a protein-rich material into the soil and cover the soil with plastic for a few weeks. A degradation, anaerobic degradation of these proteins. Because of that environment, this anaerobic degradation, a lot of these diseases, like nematodes and fungi, they die. And yeah, that's now also a thing that we put on the market in different countries. So we try to make it big, and I think it looks so far pretty. I mean, it's very well received as an alternative for chemical disinfection of soils. Well, that was all on the market, what I showed. This is something that I'm also working on at the moment, but back to the garage. See the other topics, that is already companies that you're very commercial, but this is something that I do back in my garage, also with some other people, that we try to make a paint, a wall paint, 100% bio-based, so no chemicals in it, but also 100% safe, let's say no harmful ingredients in it. So like let's say an edible, so a paint that you could eat or drink if you would want to, but yeah, and it's also based on, well, I don't go into the background of the idea how we got to this, but in the end now what we are working with, we have a nice powder, like in this bucket here, the white powder. And the nice thing is it's just a powder which is mostly starch plus calcium carbonate. It's very simple with several other ingredients to give it the properties of a paint. And that's actually where the invention is, actually how you can do it. But the end result is quite a simple powder. You can add water to it and mix it, and your paint is ready. You can use it as a wall paint. You can add some colors to it, like natural dyes or natural pigments. Make it yeah, completely bio-based paint. And now we're playing around with it together with some professional painters that give us some feedback on yeah, how what they think of it. So far, it looks quite good. That yeah, these painters they said, oh, we like it. I mean, actually, it is a powder. It's not ready to use because you cannot make it ready to use in the sense of like a normal paint, because then you would need to add a lot of chemicals to keep it stable, because it's starch. I mean, after a few days, it starts to bubble and to degrade. So we have it as a powder. But these painters so far they're quite happy with it. So and now it's a little bit looking like how are we going to put this onto the market. Now what is here again? That is developed this together with a painter, but also together with a company that is it's a Dutch company that's producing paints for children. They're actually the biggest one in Europe. That's not far from here. There's a company that produces paints for children, like in schools, that like finger paints. And they're very happy. I went to them because I thought, well, that could be an interesting company, because they could also be interested in these products for the children. That it's not toxic, because it's children. They eat and they whatever and they very much like it. So with them, I could make an arrangement that I could use some of their equipment, some of their expertise, because they know a lot about properties of these type of materials, of paint. So that doesn't cost me anything. And I made an arrangement with them that if I'm successful to make a good wall paint, they will have, let's say, the exclusivity to use this product for the children's school paint. So that's a sort of a deal. And I think, I mean, if one of you wants to go into this type of thing, like inventions and develop your own products, I think very quickly, almost already from the beginning on, you have to find a way to realize what you're doing, that you already have to make deals with someone else that can be interested in what you're doing, to be able to get access to equipment, to have access to expertise, to the market or whatever. So in that sense, let's say as an inventor, I mean, always have this commercial component to about. Well, this is another company that I won't tell too much about. It's really a pharmaceutical company that goes. Well, this is one thing that I just want to show. Company I was telling about these meat replacers, that we're doing actually quite nice, because we are now in a few 12,000 shops where you can buy these our meat replacers. But we had a hard time to attract money for it because that's always a struggle to find investors who put money into your company. And then we saw that there's in the United States there's a company, it's called Beyond Meat. They have this Impossible Burger. Those are people and that were able to attract. They also had an idea how to make a meat alternative. It's a product that is, what I think, I'm not neutral, but I think that they're not as good as our products. But they had this nice idea, but they were just able to find really rich people in the United States who put more than $100 million into that company. So it's an immensely wealthy company now, but they actually only have one shop where you can buy it. So they still have to do a lot of the development work and everything, but somehow these were really smart people that were able to sell their idea to fund it so well. So, I mean, that's also a way to, you know, if you want to attract money, to find those type of people. I mean, we have not been able to do so, but yeah, always good to keep in mind. If you have a really good idea and you find those rich people, I mean, they have just too much money. They don't want to know. They don't know what to do with it. So if you're the one that makes them happy, yeah. Okay, now I want to tell a little bit about this money thing, because as an inventor, I mean, from day one you have to worry about that. So if you look at the type of things that we're doing, the first thing to look at is subsidies and loans. There are a lot of possibilities always with subsidies. In fact, there's a lot of, let's say, the government, which can be the province or it can be the national government. They're very happy to give you a subsidy for an idea that you have. It can be a good sum of money if you have a good plan. So I would always suggest that's the first place to look for, rather than going to these rich people, which is very nice if you can find them, but you know, you cannot build on them. Subsidies are a very nice one because it's money that you get. But you don't have to give your idea. You don't have to give shares to, let's say, if you have an investor who puts money into your company, you have to give them, let's say, a share of your company. And that can be a lot of negotiation, and the investor wants to have a certain control over the company, and there's a lot of things to discuss, the things that you don't want to worry about when you're just playing around with your idea. Subsidies are a good one. You don't lose anything, and the possibilities are very good. As long as if you have ideas that deal with somehow energy, if you have something that saves energy in a way, or it's good for the environment, less toxic use of chemicals that you're using, that sort of things. Health, of course, always good subsidy possibilities. Or export, like Holland promotes things that can be exported to other countries. So, government that you have a product that will generate a lot of exports, then they're more than happy to give you subsidies or loans. Second thing, like I mentioned before, potential customers. That's also a very attractive way to fund what you're doing. Of course, you have to give them a certain exclusivity of some other rights, but it is nice to work. We do it quite often this way, because you can keep your control of your company. You don't have to discuss with shares and all that stuff. Plus, you have a customer that tells you also what to look for, what type of products they're most. You can see if you think of sometimes you have an idea and you work on things, but you don't know for sure if there's someone actually that likes your idea. So it's always good in the first phase to see if you can find such a company that is willing to give you some funding for it. Then, of course, there's business angels, let's say a rich neighbor or aunt or uncle that you have that, you know, help you with some funding, or a venture capitalist group. And the bottom one is start selling as soon as possible. What we found very often is that when you're developing things, especially if you're a scientist, if you have a background in science, you want to make it perfect. And keep on developing it forever, because the product is never perfect, and you always can improve a little bit more, make it more attractive. Our advice is always just start selling, even though it's not perfect yet. because you get a lot of feedback of what's the problem, but you also generate some income that you can use to maybe hire a new person to work more on the idea. So just start. Don't make it perfect. Try to start selling. Well, then a few other lessons that we've learned in the past years. Once you have a prototype more or less ready, then it's very good to already start thinking of building a team. Because when you want to make it ready, when you want to go to the market or you want to go to the investor to really put serious money into your company, you don't need only the idea, but you also need the team of people that will start working on it. That can be yourself, but an investor usually doesn't want to invest in one person. They want to see a group of people that together have the skills. Maybe it can be one that has more the development skills, one is more the salesperson. They just want to see the complete picture. Of course, important to choose inspiring people around you. I mean, it has to be fun because, I mean, it is hard work. It can be very frustrating. I mean, nobody is waiting for what you're doing. I mean, so it is important along the way to have a few people around you that you just like to work with. Otherwise, it's not so much fun to do it. What we do in our company is when we hire new people, that we always give them also opportunity to start their own company. So they work with us for a while, but we already tell them, like, if there's something that you like, then you can have the possibility to go with that idea and to make your own company out of it. Well, be curiosity driven, of course. And the final one, I say collaborate. Of course, yes, collaborate. Universities, everything that's possible, but in the beginning it's also important to do just a lot of things yourself. I mean, that's how it is. Okay, well, that's a little bit what I wanted to say. Well, just the last slide. Well, it's in Dutch, actually. I don't know if you can all read. Interesting. This is actually how the company started. That you have people that have great ideas, but they say, like, I don't have money. I don't have money to make a prototype. I don't know what to do. And there's other people, and sometimes you meet those people. They say, like, well, you know, I have a lot of money, but I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I don't want to put it on the bank because it doesn't give me much interest. So the trick, what we do a lot is try to make those two people get together. That's the person with ideas and the people with the money. They're both happy. Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. It's sometimes it can be the other way around, of course, but in most cases, what we have found is that first there's some idea. Of course, it doesn't come out of nowhere, but that's what it has to be out of a certain demand. But it often just starts with an idea, like the one of the meat replace. We never had a plan to do what we're actually doing at the moment. It's just playing around. That you see, like, hey, we have a protein that we can process in a way you process a plastic. You start thinking, oh, interesting, and you do all sorts of things, and maybe someone just puts it in his mouth and says, hey, this is interesting to chew on, and you start to think, hey, what can I do with something that I can chew on? And okay, and then it goes from there. But often we see that it doesn't start with, let's say, okay, I want this end product, and how do I get to this end product? No. It actually, when I was, because it's the first time actually I'm trying to sort of logic in what we're doing. And until now I did not find much logic in a sense of that I can say, like, okay, it always starts with an idea, and then this comes, and then that comes, and then that. No. each time is different, because sometimes it's the idea that we have and that you sort of play around, but sometimes we have a person that comes in and that tells about what he's doing or she's doing, and then you discuss it, and then you so it's always different the way it starts. Well, the first question, I think we're really doing the first phase. So really idea, as TDI, let's say, we take the idea and go to, let's say, proof of principle, or like a maybe prototype, that phase. Once it's there, and then we set up a new company, and then to build really a pilot scale, because usually that requires investment. That we set up already a new company with the inventor, maybe. Like that. But so we focus really on that first part to really prove that something is actually working, and then what we do is help, like what you're saying about matching with rich people. Yes, that happens. Almost rich people walk into our place and say like, "Hey, do you have a nice idea for me?" Or no, and then you match it. But what we also do is we fund it ourselves, because we've sold a few ideas with licenses, so we have some income that we use to. What we do is generally we try to do that first phase ourselves. So the investor, that is something that comes a little bit later, because an investor, they want to see a business plan, and they really targets and everything, and that's something that's very difficult in the beginning, because if you develop something, you don't know if it's going to be half a year or 2 years or 3 years. So yeah, that's raise money for that. So that's we do that based on our own sort of feeling around it. We give a person then the possibility to our labs, for example, and use our office spaces, and maybe also everything that comes with operation around it, like or applying for these subsidies that I mentioned. That type of work we do. Mostly, most often, yeah. So what is with subsidies, like most of the time, or just without. It depends, of course, very much of what type you're doing. But most cases, it is with subsidies or loans that you do that. So that and that's a phase that you don't have a business plan yet, because it's very difficult to do. So up to a prototype, it is. Of course, it's not always like, sometimes you have maybe very expensive. If you talk about medical applications, for example, to build a prototype is already something that maybe costs more than $1 million, and then of course you need a different route. You need to find an investor to do that. Yes, of course you have to. With the subsidy, they don't usually give you subsidy as just only you as a person or only as one company. But then what you do is you find the potential client. Let's say you have an idea and you have a potential client, and maybe you have 2 or 3 potential clients, or maybe also a university that can help you with the development. And together, maybe 4 different parties, for example, together you apply for a project for a subsidy. And each is putting effort in it, which generates this subsidy. And what you can do, for example, tell your potential clients, the big company, say like, okay, you put some effort in it, but I get your subsidy. I need it to develop my prototype, but once I have this prototype, you're the first one that can buy one. Or It is also that I was thinking about if you look back and where these ideas came from, but uh, both. It's both. It is ideas that you, of course, have yourself when you see things happen, that you combine different things. But you have indeed, like the algae, that's a nice one, because there's a guy that already, okay, I knew him, but he had this idea about algae, that he just walked into the place for some reason and wanted to chat a little bit, brainstorm about ideas. Then we thought, like, hey, if we combine a few things, then let's do that together. And then we decided to do it together with him. So we started the company, and we just, both had shares in that company. But that was really, it started with the idea that was not our idea. That is really from this guy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, consumers, of course, that's a different story because usually those development, in most cases, you're still in, let's say, the business-to-business phase. Because it's not so often that you develop a product that you directly sell to time. Yeah, yeah. Most time it's to other companies. Let's say if you, let's say these algae we're selling to uh, bakeries that add it to bread, or to pasta makers that add it to pasta, or to feed companies. So and then, so you can, it's not like you go to directly to consumers, because that is can be of course quite risky, because it gets a lot of news and whatever, and then if you have a bad news, then yeah, they don't believe your idea. Yeah, no, but most most cases you talk about business to business, or yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, novel food is yeah, novel food is certainly one is certainly an important issue. Yeah, with algae, for example, there's only like 5 algae on such as novel food, and um, yeah, with the algae we have that problem a little bit in some cases. We have it with this pasteurization that I showed, that with high pressure. For example, what we want to do is raw milk. If you have raw milk, now it's all pasteurized, but you lose a lot of the nice proteins that are in the milk that get denatured and lose their properties, which in our process, and we have with high pressure, but we have also one when you use electric pulses to kill bacteria and make raw milk without heating it. You can make it safe that you for drinking. But that's really a problem, because we try to, but it's really difficult to put it on the market, because that is with milk, the law says you have to heat milk before you are allowed to sell it, and there's nothing we can do about it. Or well, there's not. We are working on it with the authorities to, because there is a possibility in the law, if you can really prove that you have the same effect as heating, allowed also to use that process. But you need, yeah. So we need to show them a lot of proof that it's just as safe and just as good as heating the milk. And then you're just a little bit dependent in how much they like it. And now we are a little bit lucky that with this raw milk, they really like it, because they also can see that it would be fantastic if you're able to sell raw milk, because it has such a nice properties that health and so on. Oh, but it's a good point. It's absolutely one that we are dealing with quite often. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have now a few people. See, we have companies that we do, but there's one company of us that is, let's say, a development company. They do services for other companies. And there's a few experts that know everything about novel food. So we have, let's say, our own people now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. You can go to a specialized company. There's people that are just specialized in subsidies. So of course you have to pay them some, or part of your subsidy they will claim. But no, there are. I mean, I don't know some of them, and generally they can do quite okay work for you. So they really help you to write a proposal. Um, Typically, what they do is to help you write it in a proper way, and to give you an idea, like, okay, you should try those programs or those programs. But putting it together, you have to do yourself. Let's say finding the companies and give the basic idea of the project you have to define. The writing part, there are a lot of options if you go for advice for people that can help. We do typically ourselves because we've done it now many times, so we know a little bit where to look for. But I know that there are companies that just give it as a service to starting companies to help them with subsidies. hmm Well, the difference is that I think, of course, I don't know all the ones that you're mentioning, but typically we become part of that company. Like if there's if we help someone, if we together with an inventor start something, we also take shares in that company. And a TNO will not do that. No, that they just deliver you, so you pay them, and they develop something for you, and then you become part of the, let's say, the DNA of the company, because you're part, we together you own it, but we also have the space that you can rent and so on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. No, that's true. Often it's a matter of hiring people to do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a little bit what we as TDI, we are with 7 people. So that's so that's already, well, we have from different expertise. We have already, so you cover it sort of, yeah. But sometimes if you don't, you have to hire a new person for that, and yeah.